What if stories and legends could offer us the key to the hottest political issues of the day? What if all the answers to today's burning questions were presented in easy-to-digest narratives and myths? Join us as we examine some of the most fascinating tales, some mythological, some historical, and apply those lessons to the chaos of modern politics. With your host, Mark Angelides, welcome to The Rabbit Hole, Politics and Prose, a LibertyNation.com production.
We all have a sense of justice. Whether that ties in precisely with what the law describes as such is an entirely different matter. When karma deals a blow to those we consider worthy of such punishment, it's often as if the universe appears to be settling debts on behalf of Lady Justice. But there's also revenge, which is an extremely personal form of justice, and one that the law courts rarely take kindly to. In recent days, we've been forced to think about retaliation and revenge. With the death of Qasem Soleimani at the hands of a US drone, it appears that every man and his dog has an opinion on what is justified and what is not. Soleimani was responsible for the deaths of thousands of people and the maiming and wounding of many more, quite a few of them US citizens and servicemen. Was it just that he was killed? President Trump and the Republicans certainly seem to think so. But what of Iran? The Iranian general was considered quite the hero in Tehran, and his funeral procession was attended by hundreds of thousands, if not more. Did they and the mullahs and the Ayatollah agree that justice was served? Did they think that this was an act of revenge out of proportion to the general's own actions? Most importantly, what's the next move? The immediate response of Iran was to threaten destruction. This is an act of revenge. Retaliation would be a more equal, eye for an eye taking down of a top official. And of course, President Trump, ever one for brinksmanship, said that if Iran attacked, he would take out numerous sites of importance in what could be described as a threatened escalation. In the end, Iran launched missiles at bases in Iraq, but made sure that advance notice was given, virtually guaranteeing that no one would actually be harmed. This was really just a propaganda stunt to satisfy the home audience, who may have been thirsty for their own special brand of revenge. President Trump responded with economic sanctions. But is this situation over? Do both sides feel as though justice is being served? Perhaps the only way to understand the motivations on either side, to see who's asking for more than their fair share of justice, is to look to the past to see if there are lessons on revenge and retaliation that we can learn from. The phrase, revenge is a dish best served cold, is oft touted as an old Sicilian proverb, but the first recorded usage of the phrase comes from a French author, Pierre Chodolos de Laclos, in his famous novel Dangerous Liaisons, or Les Liaisons Dangereuses, published in 1782. And it's to France where we turn for our illustrative tale of revenge. Pierre Picot, in 1807, was doing very well for himself. He was a successful shoemaker in the prime of his life, engaged to a wealthy young woman. And so he thought, blessed with good and valued friends. And Pierre was to have his whole life torn away from him, and along with that, become the inspiration for Edmond Dantes in Alexander Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo. Three apparently envious friends of Picot came up with a plot to get rid of him and accused him of being an English spy. So he was arrested and sentenced to prison. The men responsible, Lopien, Solari, and Chaubard, apparently thought it a good jape. Picot locked away in his dark cell at Fenestrel Fortress. He became friends with an elderly Italian cleric, Father Tori. The priest, when he died, he bequeathed in prison, he bequeathed his fortune to the young man, who at the time had little or no hope of ever spending it. But times change, and with that changing came a new government. After 7 long, difficult years, Picot was released. So he first set off to Milan to claim his new fortune, and then returned to France. Determined to find out how he'd been robbed of his youth, he spoke with another former acquaintance, a Monsieur Alut, who knew of the plot against him, but had said nothing at the time. Upon discovering the terrible truth about his betrayal, Picot spent the next 10 years plotting his revenge. For Lopian, it was simply murder. Solari was slowly poisoned to death. All the while, Picot was acting out charade in various disguises, using his new wealth and righteous anger to engineer such events. And finally, we come to Chaubard, who had not only sent Picard to prison, but had also gotten married to his one-time fiancée, who Picard thought would have waited for him, but after 2 years, ended up with Chaubard. So for this very personal betrayal, Chaubard was to suffer the most. A scenario was engineered to make Chaubard's daughter meet and marry a supposedly great catch of a man. But he was not what he appeared to be. He was in fact a criminal. Now Picot had orchestrated this romance. When it was in full bloom, he then denounced the criminal, who got sent back to prison. Chaubard's daughter, she had a nervous breakdown, and according to reports from the time, died of shock, although it's more likely that she took her own life. But Picot wasn't finished with his revenge just yet. He then burnt down Chaubard's restaurant, his livelihood, and impoverishing the man. He managed to manipulate Chaubard's son into either stealing or being in possession of stolen gold. He was framed, and presumably he intended to use this gold to save his father from destitution. But Picot, he turned him over to the police. And at his lowest point, when all had been taken from him, Chaubard was stabbed to death, thus ending Picot's reign of revenge. As a side note, the only reason we actually know about Picot and how, of course, Dumas knows about Picot and the circumstances of this brutal justice is that Monsieur Allut, perhaps fearing for his own life because he failed to speak out all those years earlier, he kidnapped Picot and killed him. And we have Allut's deathbed confession that explains the whole story. Is this a tale of revenge or retribution? Many suggest that revenge is something that is paid back in spades, the act of revenge being greater than the initial effort. Picot, after all, had not only much of his youth left when he was released from prison, but also great wealth. There's certainly enough to start a brand new life. Retribution was deserved, but perhaps not revenge. Which brings us back to the Iranian situation. Have all debts been settled? Has it been retribution or has it been revenge? It's worth considering, but perhaps as with all things that impact war and peace, love and death, it's wise to look to the masters for our answers. And this time the words of Edmond Dantes in the last line of the marvelous Count of Monte Cristo. With his revenge complete and his future a truly unknown country. Wait and hope, he says. Wait and hope.
Thank you for listening to The Rabbit Hole, Politics and Prose, a LibertyNation.com production. Join us next time for more history, politics, legends, and stories.
Liberty Nation Gen Z. Becoming a strong defender of freedom and liberty doesn't just happen, it's taught. LN Gen Z is your portal for news that's hot, engaging articles without the spin. Go to lngenz.com for riveting videos that foster critical thinking. Download worksheets and quizzes for each age level. At lngenz.com, the future starts today. Combating propaganda. Defending freedom. lngenz.com. A free-thinking future starts here.